just going to be on the phone. Probably quite a short one today. Just a couple of things to talk about. I thought I'd talk about the most common faults that I have to help a PDI with for their part two, and the most probably frustrating two faults to go and practice. The reason I want to do those is because they're important, and also I want to add the becauses, the reasons why, because it's so important you understand why, because then you're more likely to carry it out, you're more likely to understand it, and you're more likely to pass it on to your pupils with a why. So I hear and watch a lot of things that other people do on YouTube and various other places, etc. And very often they don't give the reason why you're being asked to do something. They just say, for example, so I've got two examples today. One is block changing, so going down the gears, so not going down the gears even, so going from fifth to third, third to first, fifth to first, 1 to 3, 3 to 5, etc. And so let's talk about that one first. So, and the other one is going handbrake neutral if you decide to secure the vehicle. You don't always have to, but if you decide to, particularly if you're pulled up on the left or right, then it's handbrake, then neutral. Again, I'm going to explain why. So let's look at the first one, which is, already said it and forgotten it already. Let's look at that handbrake neutral, because the other one's slipped my head now. I'm going down the gears. It's been one of those mornings this morning. So yeah, let's look at going down the gears. So if you learnt more than sort of 15, 20 years ago, the chances are you were taught to go down the gears. So coming up to a junction, you're in fourth, third at that speed, second at that speed, first when you get to a walking pace, or lower when you're going to even need to stop or creep. The reason we don't do that anymore, there's a couple of reasons. One is the mechanics of a car are much more efficient, so the brakes are much more efficient than they used to be. So there's no need to keep going down the gears to help slow the car down. If you're using the gears to slow the car down and coming off the clutch, then you're probably not using the brake, and therefore you're not warning vehicles behind you slowing down. So you've got the lack of warning, and you've got the unnecessary now to do it because of the way cars' brakes are, particularly. And the main reason for we want you guys to do it is for those reasons, but the main reason is that learners, it's too distracting if they're just going down the gears, and the chances are they're not coming off the clutch between the gear changes, so they're coasting. So coasting is using the clutch when it's not necessary, and it wouldn't be necessary in that case, because you could just brake, go into second or first, whatever's appropriate, clutch up, continue. So there's too much for them to do. They're too busy changing gears to worry about the most important thing, which is looking around, observing, judgment, and being able to get out safely. So that's what we want to concentrate on, and we want them to make informed decisions. So we want to look at the junction, think, it's quite open, two car lengths from the end. So I'm going to brake it. Oh, it's looking clear, second gear, off I go. It's really closed at the end, so I'm going to keep braking. First gear, clutch control, creeping, looking, proceeding. So we're making them think about where they're looking, what they're looking for, and it makes them more observant. If they've got to choose a gear rather than just guess them as they go down, they've got to have informed choices. They've got to look around, see what's going on, judge their speed, and all those types of things. So that's why we're not going down the gears and block changing, because it is better for the car, because the way the car's built nowadays, it warns the vehicles behind you slowing down, and it makes them make more judgments, which is really important, as I say, because it just makes them think more, makes them look at the clues, the pedestrians, the lighters, how much they can see, what the flow of traffic is like at the end of the road. Even if they can't see to the sides, they can get an idea of how busy it is by the flow of traffic and all that type of thing. So it makes them more observant. So that's why we're doing it. And as I say, when you're teaching, it's much easier to teach that than it is going down the gears, or it keeps their mind on the job, if you like, more rather than easy to teach. So that's something you really want to practice, because you'll be expected to teach block changing. If a pupil doesn't block change on a AL test, they won't be marked down for it, as long as they're safe and in control. Whereas the AL test is all about safety and control, whereas the part two is about your knowledge of DES. So hence these little videos every Sunday morning. So DES says block change, for example, fifth to third, third to first, but you can do them in any order. You can, my car will allow you to go to fifth to first. You might have to put the clutch down slightly earlier. So possibly at 10 miles down, the clutch might want to go down. And you could say, well, that's coasting. Well, it's not, because the clutch is needed. So coasting is putting the clutch down when it's not necessary. In my car, it's necessary to put the clutch down. Otherwise, it's going to start juddering. And you could go into second, but as soon as you go into second, you could go into first, because you're carrying on slowing down. Might as well go straight into first. with the clutch slightly earlier. That's absolutely acceptable because that's what the car requires. Therefore, it's allowed. It's not about set rules and stuff. So you can go from a high gear to a low gear, whatever's necessary. You might find your car really doesn't like it and really objects too early. Then go into fifth to second, for example, or fourth to second, and then go into first. That will be okay. But if you can get away with missing a gear, then you should. But it might mean the clutch just goes down slightly earlier. So that's that one. That's why that's important. And it's practice, because it sounds easy, doesn't it? But if you've done something for 20 or 30 years, that's millions of gear changes probably. You've got to go, don't change gear, don't change gear, don't change gear. Right, I'm going to go. So you're basically going to change gear at the point where you're committing yourself, and then you go. Simple as that. Easy in it, but it takes a lot of practice. I'm sure any of you guys have had to go out and practice that. It's not a nightmare. I was going to say nightmare, but it's a pain. It is a pain. I can remember doing it 30 years ago and coming up, I've told you guys, a lot of you guys this story, but coming up to a roundabout where don't change gear, don't change gear, don't change gear, don't change gear. Second gear, go, oh no, bus. Just didn't see the bus because our brains aren't as capable as we like to think they are, get overloaded really easily. So practice it, but be very aware you could lose some observation skills and knowledge. So make sure that you've got that on board as well. So practice in a quiet place to begin with, even for example, just stopping, just going along, take yourself back to an industrial state or somewhere, central journey of course, slowing down from fourth, slowing down, first gear, stopping, that's fine. If you're actually going to stop on the left, you don't need to go into a gear at all, you just stop and then go into first gear, but we're practicing if you're coming up to a junction or something like that. But yeah, be aware that you will just pull out and stuff because your brain is so intent on not changing gear that you'll forget the other stuff you've always known. It's brain overload. It's interesting, and it's worth certainly being aware of because you might think, well, I'll be all right. Watch, and again, you guys that have possibly done it could back that up or not. So just be aware. Just be aware when you're starting something new, it can be frustrating. So as I say, quite a good way to practice it is slowing down, pulling up at the side of the road, slowing down, into first just before you stop. If you were stopping, say normally to secure the car, you wouldn't do that, but it's worth practicing first just before you stop. The reason I want to practice that because I want you to add something to that now, which is the handbrake neutral. So if you've stopped in first, then you put the handbrake on and then go into neutral. So remember, if you were at a junction, if you were pulling up at the side of the road to secure it, you would normally stop in whatever gear, fourth gear, then go handbrake neutral. But to practice two at the one go, you could do these together, or you could just separate them. It's up to you. So let's talk about handbrake neutral. The reason it's important is because it's in DES, but that's not the reason. But it is in DES, and it's important that we follow what DES says. And DES says stuff for a reason. Unfortunately, DES does not add the reason. So that's my job. My job is to add the reason. Your trainer's job is to add that reason. As I said before, this came up on something I was listening to the other day. And so you need to go handbrake neutral. No, because there's no reasons why. Know how that affects what you teach. So these are the reasons why. The reason why is because if you stop, it doesn't matter what gear you're in, whether it's first or fifth or whatever, stop, handbrake first because that secures the vehicle, keeps the vehicle safe. So if you were to release the clutch by mistake, and I know you wouldn't, but let's say you would, it's going to jump forward, but it's not going to jump forward because you've got the handbrake on. So it's more parking brake. So it's parking brake, then neutral. So this is something to really go and practice. It's again, a real frustrating one. Think, yeah, I'll go and do that, and then you'll go, neutral handbrake. Reason it's important for a few reasons. One is because they're looking for it, because it's what it says in DES, and because of what it does, it makes you self-aware of your own driving, which is really important. This is one that sort of makes you self-aware quite quickly, but you say, I've done it wrong again. What that then does is gives you empathy with the people that does stuff in the wrong order. I'm thinking, are you thick? Told you that 4 times. What's wrong with you? How many times do I need to tell you? It's because it's a physical thing, not a mental thing, and requires practice. So you need to be talking to yourself when you pull up, right, when I stop, right, I'm not going to go down the gears, right, stopped, now handbrake, and now neutral. And you need to talk yourself through it. If you don't talk yourself through it, the chances are your subconscious brain will take over and you'll do whatever you've always done. You'll be going down the gears and you're going neutral first and then handbrake. This then leads on to why we teach how you would teach it with the pupil. So if a pupil comes to you with a bad habit for whatever reason, sometimes they just pick that from parents by sitting next to them. It's a talk through thing rather than going, done it in the wrong order again, Fred. What's wrong with you? Can't you remember? No, they can't remember. You probably can't remember either. So as they're stopping, you would talk them through. So remember, stopping, keep your feet still, parking brake on, now pop it into neutral. That sort of thing. So by practicing talking yourself through it, you're practicing how you're going to teach it later on. Saying this, doesn't matter for learners on our test, as always, as long as it's safe and it works and doesn't affect anyone outside the car, not going to be marked down. Or if it is, it certainly won't be a failure. It's not a problem. It's if it goes wrong, it's a problem. And where it's going to go wrong is on the first few lessons. So this is why it's really important, because if you don't teach handbrake neutral, what will happen is they're likely to go into neutral. As soon as they go into neutral, they tend to relax, and that means relax their feet. The car could be rolling. Not an issue for you. Dual control, job done. Remember, a lot of you guys are going to take people out to begin with without dual controls. So for you guys that are going to take people out to practice without dual controls, this is a little thing, but absolutely crucial. That a couple of things. One, you're talking them through it, and you're using keep your feet still. So clutch down, start to brake gently, and stop. Keep your feet still. Pop the parking brake on. Keep your feet still. Now pop it into neutral. You won't get them jumping forward. If you don't say keep your feet still, they will jump forward. And if you haven't put the parking brake on first, you're going to start rolling now, and you could be rolling down a hill, and you don't have any way of stopping them because you don't have dual control. Yes, you've got a parking brake, but it all gets a bit messy. So it doesn't sound very important, but it's really important that you practice it when you're doing your own driving. It's really important that when you're teaching, you make sure you teach it in the right order, and you're using phrases like keep your feet still between each command. So clutch down, gently brake and stop, keep your feet still, handbrake on, keep your feet still, pop into neutral and relax, or something like that. And that works really well. So that's why it's important, because if they were to go out and practice with parents, for example, and they weren't used to doing handbrake neutral, they will do neutral, relax and start rolling, and the parents will panic, and it can all go wrong very quickly. So it's one of those things that doesn't sound important at all. It doesn't really matter if I go parking brake neutral or neutral parking brake. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to you because you don't take your feet off the pedal and roll down the hill. Pupils will, with you or with parents or with or without dual controls. And the DVSA know that, so that's why they're quite hot on this system, and that's why you should be practicing, because if you're doing it yourself, you're likely to teach it, and if you understand why you're doing it, again, you're much more likely to teach it. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. Thanks, Brian. I stress this with my students, but it's so easy to do neutral handbrake. It is absolutely, and on its own, it's neutral handbrake is not an issue, and on an L test, not an issue at all. But if they're in a habit of doing it, for want of a better phrase, or a sequence of doing it, as I say, when they go out with parents and things, that could be a problem, Kevin, couldn't it? And with you, if you don't have dual controls, because a lot of people in here will go out and practice with their nieces, nephews, sons, daughters, not at the moment, but when they can, and you won't have dual controls, you'd be like a parent, so that's pretty important. On a part 2, it is marked down. It is marked down because you're going against what Des says without good reason. Even if it doesn't cause you a problem, you'll get away with it 2 or 3 times, don't cause you a problem. Then they're going to mark you down. Only once, you won't fail for it, but they mark you down so you can have a conversation with you about it. This is important. It's important you teach this and the reasons that I've given for safety. So any more questions? Quite a short one today, but I think I just wanted to cover those 2. And next week I'll find another 2 common things that people on their part 2 have to go away and practice. And that's what these are. These are just practice things, and things that you just have to practice over and over again, because it takes a while to get rid of a habit or a sequence. What about before moving off? How do you explain the handbrake last? It doesn't seem to be a problem, because it's a natural thing to release a brake before you go. So it doesn't seem to be something that comes up too much. But what I would tend to do is make sure they're ready. So, for example, a talk through could be, obviously start the engine, clutch down, first gear, set the gas so we can hear it. That's enough gas, keep those feet still. So I bring the clutch up like I'm demonstrating my hand. I will use my hand for the speed of the clutch. And then when I can feel it's getting to bite, because I've got the understanding and knowledge, just keep it there. Keep your feet still there. That's it. Just keep those feet still. You're at biting point now. Put your handbrake on and get it ready. Press the button, but don't put it down. Blah, blah, blah with your observations. Keep those feet still. Parking brake all the way down. Clutch up gently like I demonstrated with my hand. And away we go. So the reason they're going to get it right is because I'm going to talk them through it right. And once I've talked it through it right a number of times, the chances are that then goes into the head. Then you can ask questions. So if you see the handbrake go down early, you can say, oh, just wait for the handbrake. Oh, why aren't we going to put the handbrake down early? Go and practice on hills, particularly uphill. So it shows why. If you do it on the flat all the time, then again, get away with it, and it's not going to be a problem. Of course, when you come to a hill, there's no understanding. So put them in situations where it's likely to become obvious why it's a handbrake last. But good talk through, good follow up. No problem. Okay, so there's a signal if on is last. So you've probably seen it before you put the parking brake down, but I don't want to get into this too much. And then it will cancel itself when you pull out. If not, then it goes off. But it's it's going to be parking brake down before you move. Any more questions? Sorry about the phone moving today. It's just a last minute option. Any more for any more? And there's a little time lapse. I'm just going to give it a couple of seconds. No. So hopefully that was useful. So next week I'll come up with 2 more things that I find that people have to go and practice for their part 2 that just take practice. There's understanding element. Once you can understand it, then it's just a practice because your subconscious brain wants to do it before you want to do it. And it's a pain, but they are the reasons. Hopefully that was useful. Because there's some reasons why. I think one of the ones I'll do next week is mirrors. And we talked about mirrors before, but talking about what people struggle with on part 2 of mirrors and why we check our mirrors and what we're going to do about it. Again, I watched something the other day where they told people, you check your mirror before you slow down, but there's no reasons why. And I think as experienced drivers, if you've been driving, 20, 30 years and not really used your mirrors that often and not be rear-ended and not had a problem, it can be difficult for the subconscious brain particularly to understand why it's important. And your subconscious brain really has to get it. There's a difference between getting something and understanding something. Oh, I get that. Isn't necessarily understanding it. And to go on to teach it and be able to explain it to other people and be able to get them to buy into it, you have to buy into yourself. Therefore, there has to be an understanding. So we'll talk about mirrors and I'll pick something else.